The job she never got. The sun was hot above the alien colony. The air smelled of metal and burning fuel. Ships flew overhead, and voices filled the streets, buying, selling, shouting. But no one looked at her. The widow mother stood quietly with her child wrapped in a torn cloth. Her eyes were tired. Her skin was rough and cracked. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she wasn't begging for food. She was begging for work. "Please," she said to a shopkeeper. "I can clean, I can carry, I need to feed my child." The shopkeeper didn't even look up. "No jobs for your kind," he said, and waved her away like dust. She went to the next stall. "Anything, please." The alien behind the counter laughed. "Go back to your hole. You'll only bring bad luck." Her child coughed. A weak sound. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. She held him close and wiped his forehead. Her legs were shaking, but she moved to another shop. Then another. Each one said the same thing: no jobs, no help, no hope. Far across the market, a human man watched her. He wore a dirty jacket and stood beside a stack of old machine parts. His face was rough, his eyes quiet. He didn't speak. He just watched. He saw her try again. Another rejection. The child now crying softly against her shoulder. Still, she didn't beg for food. She just wanted a chance to work, to earn, to stand on her own. Later, as the sky turned orange, she found a broken bench near the scrapyard and sat. Her arms ached. Her feet were sore. Her child looked up at her, his big alien eyes blinking slowly. She pulled out a small cloth. Inside were dry crumbs. That's all she had left. She broke a crumb in two and gave the bigger piece to her son. He ate it slowly, chewing like it was a meal. She smiled weakly. Then she heard a voice. "You need real food." She looked up. The human stood there. He wasn't holding a weapon. He wasn't shouting, just standing. Calm. Kind. The widow quickly stood, shielding her child. "I don't need your pity," she said. The human shook his head. He took something from his jacket, a fresh piece of bread. Warm. He held it out. "Not pity, just bread." She stared at it, then at him. She didn't move. "Take it," he said. "For your child." Her child looked up. His small hand reached. She hesitated, then let him take it. The boy ate fast, too fast. She blinked back tears. The man sat on a rock. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. "I saw you. You didn't beg. You didn't steal. You just kept asking for work." Still, she stayed silent. "I have a workshop," he said. "It's not much, dirty, full of junk, but if you clean it, I'll pay." She looked down. "Why me?" He shrugged. "Why not you?" The stars came out slowly. She held her child, thinking hard. Then she nodded once, just once. The man stood. "Come tomorrow early at the back of the scrapyard." He walked away without asking for thanks. She looked at her sleeping son. Tomorrow, maybe, just maybe, would be different. Morning came with cold wind and dust in the air. The widow mother stood outside the scrapyard, her thin clothes pressed tight to her skin. Her child clung to her back, still asleep. She had no bag, no shoes, no belongings, just hope. She remembered the human's words. "Come early." At the back of the scrapyard, she walked past rusted metal, broken machines, and strange smells. Many eyes stared at her from behind fences, alien workers, guards, junk sellers. She kept her head down and walked forward. Then she saw him. The human stood in front of an old workshop. Tools hung on the wall, wires dangled from the roof, and smoke rose from a small fire in the corner. His jacket was still dusty. His hands were already black with oil. "You came," he said. "I said I would," she replied softly. He pointed inside. "Start wherever you want. It's all a mess." Inside, it smelled of burnt wires, grease, and old metal. The floor was covered in ash and tools. She tied her child in a cloth on her back and started working. No complaints. No questions. She swept the floor with a broken broom. She scrubbed metal sheets with her hands. She carried old parts outside and stacked them. She didn't rest. Not even once. The human watched her from the side, silent. At midday, the child woke and cried. She stopped only for a moment, giving him the last crumbs from a torn pouch. Then she got back to work. She didn't notice the human walking away. She didn't see him return. With food. Here, he said, placing a small bowl on a clean table. She turned. Her eyes widened. There was warm soup. Real soup. With pieces of meat and soft bread beside it. I didn't ask for this, she said. You didn't have to, he answered. Her child reached for the bowl. She held him back for a second, then let go. He grabbed the spoon with both hands, eyes wide. She stood, watching him eat. Sit down, the human said. Eat with him. She didn't move. He spoke again, quieter. You earned it. Slowly, carefully, she sat. Her fingers shook as she picked up the spoon. The first bite was warm. The second was tears. Outside the workshop, 2 aliens stood in the shadows. Why is he feeding her? She's just a widow. A beggar. He's human. Maybe he's lost. His mind. They left, whispering louder. When the widow finished eating, she stood. I'll clean more. The human nodded. Do it your way. I trust you. That word, trust, hit her heart. She had not heard that word in years, not since her husband died in the war, not since the town turned its back, not since her own people stopped seeing her as anything but a burden. By evening, the workshop looked different, cleaner, brighter. The tools were in order. The floor was swept. The old machines looked ready for life again. The human gave her a small pouch of coins. For today, he said. Her hands trembled as she took it. I can come tomorrow? She asked. If you want, he said with a small smile. She looked at her child, now smiling in his sleep. I will, she whispered. I will. But in the dark corner of the colony, an angry alien slammed his fist on a table. Why is a human helping her? She'll bring shame to the work district. Maybe it's time someone reminded them of the rules. It was still dark when the widow mother arrived. She stood outside the workshop with her child asleep on her back. The cold air stung her hands, but she didn't care. She had come early, earlier than needed. She wanted to prove she belonged. Inside, the human was already working, welding a broken machine, sparks flying in the dim light. When he looked up and saw her, he didn't act surprised. He simply nodded. You're early, he said. I want to work more, she replied. He handed her a cloth and pointed to the far corner of the workshop. There's an old engine there, covered in grease. If you can clean it, I might be able to fix it. Without another word, she got to it. She scrubbed, for hours. The engine was heavy, thick with dust and black slime. Her hands bled as she scraped it clean. Her clothes turned dark with oil. Her child woke up hungry and she fed him with what little bread she had saved from yesterday. Still, she didn't stop. The human kept working beside her, fixing wires, tightening bolts, watching her from time to time. He didn't tell her how to do things, he just trusted her. At noon, he stepped out. I'll be gone for an hour, he said. Have lunch. Rest. She looked up from her work. I'll keep working. He hesitated for a moment, then tossed her a small key. This opens the storage room, tools. Some food too. Use what you need. She caught the key, surprised. You're leaving me here alone? She asked. He shrugged. If you wanted to steal, you would have done it already. And then he left. She stood alone in the workshop. Around her were machines, toolkits, and supplies. Things she could sell for coins. Things her people would have fought over. Things she needed. She stared at the door to the storage room. She opened it slowly. Inside, there were clean clothes, tools, food, blankets, medicine. Her child was coughing again. The medicine called to her. Just one bottle. But she didn't touch it. Instead, she went back to the engine. She worked harder. She worked until her arms burned and her legs shook. When the human returned, he found her asleep on the floor, curled, around her child, oil still on her face. The engine gleamed beside her. He didn't speak. He just covered them both with a clean blanket from the storage room. The next morning when she woke, she found a cup of warm tea beside her, and a clean set of clothes. She looked at the human, confused. He was fixing another machine, his back, to her. "I didn't steal anything," she said quickly. "I know," he replied. "Why?" she whispered. He turned. "Because you remind me of someone." "Who?" He didn't answer. That day, he showed her how to use real tools, how to fix wires, how to lift engine parts without hurting her back. She listened carefully. She learned fast. He never yelled. He never raised his voice. For the first time in a long time, someone was teaching her, not ordering her. But outside, in the corners of the colony, trouble was growing. She's getting special treatment. She's stealing human kindness. That workshop should burn, and someone was already watching from the shadows. The workshop door creaked open every morning now. The widow mother arrived with her child wrapped warmly on her back, no longer shivering. She wore cleaner clothes, still patched, but no longer soaked in grease. Her face looked a little stronger. Her walk a little prouder. Inside the human's workshop, the machines hummed with life. Where there was once dust and silence, now there was work, real, honest work. She cleaned, she sorted, and sometimes she repaired. And the human? He smiled more often now, spoke more, taught her things no one had ever taught her. "Wires go red to red," he explained, showing her with careful hands. "If you mix them, it sparks." She nodded and repeated it. She was learning, day by day, scar by scar. But in the alleyways of the colony, whispers spread like poison. "Have you seen the human workshop? They say he gave her food. I heard he gave her clothes. They share meals now. She must be using him." The words came from aliens with no jobs to give and too much pride to help. Envy mixed with hate, and those whispers grew louder. Some aliens sneered when they saw her walking in the streets. Others spat near her feet. Still, she walked on. One day, a merchant approached the human directly. "You're making a mistake," the merchant said, arms crossed. "She's not one of us. She's nothing." The human looked up from his workbench. "She shows up early, she works hard, she never asks for more than she earns. That's more than I can say for you." The merchant's face darkened. "She'll drag you down." "She's helping me rise," the human replied simply. The merchant walked away, but the glare in his eyes promised trouble. That night, something changed. The widow returned home, a small shelter near the scrap fields, only to find strange marks on the door. Paint, ugly symbols, a warning. She held her child close and quietly wiped them off. No screams, no tears, just silence. But deep inside her was fear. The next day, the human noticed her shaking hands. "What happened?" She didn't answer. She kept working. Did someone do something? Still silence, but her eyes, they told the truth. He stood and walked to the door, pulling out a rusted pipe and setting it beside his workbench. "Next time someone tries," he said coldly, "I'll answer." She looked at him then. Really looked. No one had ever defended her before. Not with words, not with weapons. And somehow that scared her more than the threats. Later that evening, a group of aliens gathered outside a dark tavern. She's still working with the human. Why hasn't he thrown her out? Maybe he needs a reminder. One of them lit a small fire stick. Another filled a bottle with oil. We'll give him something to remember. Back at the workshop, the human packed up for the night. "You don't have to come tomorrow if you're scared," he said gently. She looked up, defiant. "I'm not scared of work." He smiled. She turned to leave, her child already asleep in her arms, but neither of them knew. Someone was watching from across the street. A hand held the bottle. A flame was coming. And the real test was near. It began with the smell of smoke. The widow mother was nearly asleep. Her child rested quietly beside her in the dark, both wrapped in a thin blanket. The shelter was silent until she smelled something burning. Then came the crackle. Then the orange glow. She sat up quickly, eyes wide. The door was on fire. The flames danced like angry spirits, climbing fast across the wood and cloth walls of the small hut. She grabbed her child, wrapping him tight in her arms as smoke filled the room. She ran to the back exit, coughing, choking, but the fire was already there too. The whole shelter was a trap. She dropped to the ground, covering her son with her body. If she had to burn, so be it, but not him. Then, crash. A heavy boot smashed through the burning door. A tall figure rushed in, wrapped in a fire coat. The smoke swallowed everything, but his voice cut through. "Where are you?" She coughed hard, then screamed, "Here." Strong arms lifted them both. The child cried, but the man held them close and ran through the fire. Flames licked his coat. Wood fell around him. Sparks bit at his neck. But he didn't stop. He didn't let go. They tumbled into the cold night air, rolling into the dirt just as the roof collapsed behind them. The widow gasped, pulling her child close. The human tore off, his fire coat, his shirt singed, skin red. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She couldn't speak. She just stared at him. "You're safe now," he said gently. But across the street, shadows moved. The same alien who threw the firebomb now watched. With clenched teeth, she survived. The others hissed. The human saved her again. Then maybe, next time we start with him. The next morning, the widow stood beside the burnt remains of her home. Ash everywhere. Nothing left. She didn't cry. She just held her son tighter. The human stood beside her, arms crossed, silent. He didn't say sorry. He didn't offer pity. He said only one thing. "Come live at the workshop. There's space in the back." She looked at him, unsure. "I won't ask for rent," he added, "but I will expect you to show up early." A pause. She nodded once. "We'll be there." That same day, the widow returned to the workshop with her child. The human cleared a small storage room for them, gave them a clean mat, a blanket, even a small lamp. That night, her son slept peacefully, for the first time in many nights. And the widow? She sat beside him, staring at the wall, remembering the fire, and the arms that carried her through. 3 days later, trouble came again. An alien worker, drunk, bitter, stormed into the workshop. "I warned you, human," he shouted. "She's poison!" The human stood from his workbench, wiping his hands. "She's a worker. Better than most. She's a stain on this colony." The widow stepped forward. "Leave. I don't want trouble." But the alien growled and raised his arm. The child cried out. The human didn't wait. His fist landed first. One punch, fast and hard, sent the alien crashing to the floor. Silence. The human stood over him. "This is your last visit." The alien crawled out, bloody and gasping. The widow stared at the human, stunned. "You hit him?" He looked at his bruised knuckles, then at her. "He threatened my worker. My friend." He walked away, saying nothing else. That night, while her child slept, the widow sat by the small lamp, hands in her lap. She had lost her home. She had nearly lost her life. But for the first time in years, she had something real, safety, and someone who would fight for her. The days passed quietly, but not without meaning. The workshop buzzed with tools, sparks, and life. Machines that hadn't moved in years were now repaired. Engines coughed, screens blinked, systems breathed again. At the heart of it all was the widow mother, no longer hiding in corners. She no longer looked down when people passed. She walked with purpose. Her hands were strong. Her arms no longer shook with weakness. Each morning she lit the furnace before the human even woke. She prepared her child's food, then swept the floor before starting on parts and repairs. She didn't need to be told. She saw what needed doing and did it, and still, she was paid. Fairly. One evening, after fixing a heavy turbine alone, she entered the main room and stood before the human. Her hands were dirty, her clothes torn at the knees. Her hair clung to her face with sweat. She pulled a small cloth bag from her belt, filled with coins. "I want to return this," she said. The human looked up from his work. "Why?" "It's too much," she said. "You saved my life, you feed us, you gave us a room, this is more than I deserve." The human stood up slowly and wiped his hands. His face was calm, but firm. "No," he said. "It's exactly what you earned." She frowned. "I don't want pity." He stepped closer. "This isn't pity," he said. "This is respect." She lowered her head, but he continued. "You think your worth is low because of how others treated you. But I've seen you work harder than 10 hired hands. I've seen you fight hunger, cold, fire, and still show up the next day." She blinked fast, fighting tears. "You think I help you because I feel sorry?" he said, voice soft now. "I help you because you're worth helping." Her lips parted, but no words came. "You earned every coin," he said again. "Keep it." That night the child slept with a full belly and warm arms around him, and the widow stared at her hand, still holding the coin bag. She didn't return. Yet she placed it beside her son's shoes, smiled softly, and whispered, "One day I'll give you a better life than this, I promise." But the colony outside still wasn't quiet. Many aliens still scowled when they passed the workshop. Others whispered about her behind her back. "She thinks she's important now. She's just a pet to the human. Wait till someone reminds her what she really is." Still she worked. Still she stood tall. Because now, she had something more than survival. She had dignity. The next day, a customer came to the workshop. A rich alien trader with golden clothes and a loud voice. He pointed at the widow while she worked. "Her? She's your worker." The human nodded. "She touched my shipment once, I remember her. A waste of space." The human stepped forward calmly. "She fixed your drone system last week. It still runs perfectly." The trader froze. "That was her?" The human nodded again. The trader scoffed but said nothing more. The widow didn't even look up. She just kept working, like always. Later that evening, the human handed her a toolkit. "What's this?" she asked. "You've learned enough," he said. "You can handle solo repairs now." Her eyes widened. "You're letting me take jobs?" He smiled. "You're ready." She held the box carefully, like it was made of glass. "You still want to work?" She nodded fast. "Yes." "Then don't thank me," he said. "Just keep doing what you do." She looked at her son, playing with scrap wires nearby, and for the first time, she let herself believe. Maybe her life was worth more than survival. Maybe she was more than a poor widow. Maybe, just maybe, she was building a future. The workshop doors opened just before sunrise, but this time the widow wasn't alone in her usual way. Her child ran ahead of her, small boots tapping against the floor, laughter echoing through the metal walls. He darted between toolboxes and old engines like the place was a playground. The widow followed, smiling. The same woman who once stood in the street with hollow eyes and empty hands now walked with quiet strength. Her back was straight, her eyes calm. Her hands no longer trembled from hunger, but from holding tools for too long. She wasn't just helping anymore. She belonged. The human entered behind her, carrying a crate of spare parts. "Your boy's faster than I am," he joked. She chuckled. "He thinks the workshop is his castle." "Well," the human said, placing the crate down, "he's got a good queen watching over it." She paused at that. A compliment like that used to feel like a trick, but now it felt warm. Later that day, they fixed a delivery drone together. The human handed her the scanner. "You want to run the final check?" She nodded, focused. The screen blinked green. "System ready," she said with a quiet grin. He raised his hand for a high five. She blinked, then slowly slapped his hand back. Her son clapped from the corner. "Fixed," the boy shouted. But outside, something had changed. The whispers were gone, not because people stopped talking, but because the results spoke louder than gossip. The machines she repaired stayed fixed. The clients she handled came back, asking for her. Even the loud alien trader who once called her a stain now asked her to oversee a full repair job. Respect didn't come easily, but she had earned it, piece by piece. That evening they sat at a table in the workshop's side room, the one she once used as a shelter. Now it was their shared dining space. The human placed warm food on the table. He always cooked more now. You don't have to, she said. I like to, he replied. Her son had his own seat now, and a plate of soft bread and stew. He giggled, dipping his fingers into the broth. The human passed her a bowl. You fixed 6 engines today, you deserve this, she smiled. You taught me how. No, he said. You learned. I just stood nearby. After dinner, while the boy napped on a pile of clean rags, the widow sat with the human near the open workshop door. The stars above the colony were clear tonight. Bright. Peaceful. She looked at him and asked softly, "Why did you help me that first day?" He didn't answer at once. "I've seen people fall before," he finally said. "Most of them don't get back up." "But you stood there," she said, voice low. "You waited," he nodded. "I was waiting to see if someone still would." She swallowed hard. "And did I?" "You got back up every day," he said. "You didn't just survive, you rose." Silence hung between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, of something not spoken aloud. Then her child stirred, reaching out in his sleep. The human moved first, lifting him gently and placing him on a padded chair. The boy didn't even wake. He just curled up peacefully. She watched the way the man moved, not like a boss, not like a stranger, but like something else. The next day, someone knocked. On the workshop door, a small alien family stood there. "Is it true?" the father asked. "That you trained the widow?" The human nodded. "She runs the side room now," he said. The father held out a broken console. "We want her to fix it." The widow blinked, then slowly stepped forward. Her child peeked out from behind a barrel. The family smiled. That smile wasn't pity. It was respect. Weeks later, a new sign hung outside the shop. "Human and Widow Repairs, open to all." And under it, the child had drawn a shaky picture of 3 stick figures, one tall, one thin, and one small. The tall one had short, human hair. The small one had a big smile, and the one in the middle wore a crown made of bolts and wires. The story that began with a begging mother ended with a workshop, with a family, and with proof that sometimes the greatest hope comes from the one heart brave enough to see worth where others saw waste.